So now we have all of our rates configured and we're able to create on-the-fly time and expense bills. But we don't want to have to repeat this process for each customer every week or month, so we can automate the process of creating these invoices. Automation of time and expense billing is done via recurring invoices. Click on the recurring invoices link under the documents section of the finance menu. Click add to create a new recurring invoice. You'll note the details of the recurring invoice are very similar to an invoice itself, with a few minor differences. First, we set the first issue date and the expiry date of our recurring invoice. This determines the range in which these invoices will be created. The frequency of creation can be either daily, weekly, fortnightly, monthly, every 2, 3, 6 months, or annually. For the purposes of this demo, we'll create a monthly invoice to be generated from the 1st of November 2011 and expiring on the 2nd of November 2012. The next three fields are merely indicators to show you when the expected generation of the invoice created from this recurring invoices will occur. Payment terms, currency, and template are as per a standard invoice. The status field determines what status the generated invoice will be in once the process completes. On hold and cancel mean that no invoice will be generated. Issued to pending and issued to issued indicate the invoice will be created and placed in either a pending or an issued status. Now let's add some line items to our recurring invoice. Click on the add link to add a new line item. You'll see that this looks pretty similar to a standard invoice, with a few minor but key differences. Firstly, the indicator image on the left side is clickable. This allows you to change what this invoice will create when it is generated. Firstly, and by default, this is set to ad hoc, which will be as per the quantities, prices, etc. set in the detail record itself. Secondly, this can be changed to a time-based bill, which refer to the time logs created in the period preceding the invoice generation. For example, if we have a monthly recurring invoice, and a time-based bill will refer to the previous month when generating the invoice, and pick up all the time logs created during that period. It's important to note that the created date is used here, rather than the time log entry date, as if time logs are entered into the system late, they can still be picked up in the next billing cycle. Finally, we can set this to expense-based, which will refer to all logged expenses for the billing period and create a line item based on those expenses. In a later video, we'll discuss project costs or expenses in more detail. Next, select the rate to be used. The selected rate will also determine which time types to bill against. If all rates are selected, then each rate will be checked for billable time and a separate line item will be created for each billable rate with a determined quantity greater than 0. Next, the track against field determines which project, component, version or work item to check for billable time. This field is required and cannot be left blank when creating a time or expense based bill. In our example, we'll set the track against field to a project, which will check all work items inside that project for billable time. You'll note that the description field is disabled, as the description will be set based on the discovered work items and or time logs when your invoice is generated. Next, we need to set the appropriate rule. Rules are used to determine how to allocate the time or expenses to this line item as a quantity. The first option is equals, which will simply bill the calculated or determined quantity from the log time. Each subsequent rule will adjust the determined quantity as per the rule's description, which can be seen by hovering over the rule when the drop-down box is open. For the purposes of this demo, we'll set the rule to greater than minus, which will only create this line item if the determined quantity is greater than the value set in the quantity field, and will also subtract the set quantity from the determined quantity. For example, let's say we have a service contract with our client where they buy a fixed 10 hours of SEO work upfront every month. For this, they get 10 hours at a slightly reduced rate. But if we do more than 10 hours development, then we want to bill the hours over and above the initial 10 hours at our standard SEO rate. So, when this invoice is generated, it will create a line item for SEO retainer at 10 times 65 plus the taxable amount. Then it will examine the time logs in the previous month, and if there is more than 10 hours logged, let's say there were 15 hours logged for argument's sake, it will create a new line item for 5 hours of SEO work at £75 per hour. Click on Save to create your recurring invoice. SimplyFi will pick up and generate the appropriate invoices automatically when the next invoice is due. Note that automated creation of recurring invoices is done via the Gemini Scheduler service, so this will need to be installed and can be downloaded free from www.geminiplatform.com. And that's it. Your billing is now fully automated, and you can concentrate on the actual work that brings in the money. Till next time.